So if you could be here around 9, that would be great. Okay?
Well, listen here.
Hello, and welcome to 90 Day Fiance UK. I'm Mr. O, and today, Miss H and I will be discussing Season 9, Episode 9 of 90 Day Fiance. In this episode, Tara and Guillermo check out a wedding venue way outside their price range. Shaeeda can't figure out how to use a scooter. Mohamed wants to keep Eve away from her friends. Jibri tries to figure out how his music career and Miona fit together. Emily extracts more money from mom and dad, leading to a talking to for Kobe. And John surprises Patrick and Thais with the most stressful party ever. As always, we'll end with our Students of the Week, class dances, and life lessons. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and subscribe. All right, thanks for listening, stay safe, and enjoy.
Hello, Mr. O.
Hello, Miss H.
How are you?
I'm not doing too bad. I'm back home on the East Coast. Got to sleep in my own bed, so that was nice. A change from the past 2 weeks.
Oh, gosh. I think sleeping in my own bed actually caused my back to hurt just because of the adjustment.
My back was already hurting at the hotel, so I need that. But yeah, it's still not. I still have not adjusted to any beds. That's one of the things about getting older is like everything that's different is like, and now my back hurts for some reason.
That's true. All right. Speaking of getting older, let's start off with a couple that, is encouraged to grow up, and that's Emily and Kobe. So Emily and Kobe are just trying to have fun, so they go horseback riding. Kobe has never really been around horses before, but he's doing actually pretty well. Kobe thinks that this is a good experience, and he appreciates that Emily and him can put aside their differences to make their most of their time together. Emily is now starting to think about planning their wedding 30 days in, which means asking her parents for some money. She sits down with her parents and kind of beats around the bush saying they're worried about money, but then goes in for the ask. David, her dad, takes a deep breath. They were expecting this. But he still thinks that Kobe needs to prove himself because they feel like they just don't know him. They both think that Emily has a choice and she shouldn't just rush into marriage. Lisa, her mom, brings up the barn fight, where Kobe tells her to shut the F up, which is news to David. David thinks what he did was disrespectful and says that Kobe can't speak to her that way. Lisa is worried that Emily thinks that marriage will make their relationship better, but we all know that's not what happens. Emily says that she has it handled, and the only thing she actually needs help with is money. David reluctantly agrees to help with the wedding, but says he doesn't want to keep shelling out money every time they need something. Emily tries to assure them that they won't be asking for money just as soon as Kobe gets a job doing something. This concerns David because they don't seem to have a clue or a plan. Lisa says that that Emily really doesn't have a clue about living in the real world and having to pay bills, and Emily kind of rolls her eyes and says, okay. Later, David has a sit down with Kobe. Kobe is a little nervous because he says David is intimidating. David asks Kobe what his plan is, and really he means financially. And Kobe says that he'd like to, join David in his business someday. David is an architect, and he's asking Kobe what kind of degrees or training he has, and Kobe says he graduated high school. David then tells him that he'll need to go back to school, and that is going to cost some money. Kobe very proudly tells David about the $4,000 he saved up and brought over, and he kind of wonders if Emily even told her parents about it. But David said that isn't going to get them very far in America. Kobe looks kind of disappointed, and he's realizing that this money isn't going to help fulfill his promises to Emily. David tells them that Emily and Kobe need to sit down and budget. David also points out that Emily has no clue how to run a household, so they're going to need to talk about finances. All right, so why do you think that David and Lisa kind of act like they're going to, baby bird them, like they're, first of all, spoon feeding them everything, but then it sounds like in a couple months they're just going to straight up kick them out of the nest.
Oh my God, no. I would bet all of my money that they've been threatening to kick Emily out every 3 months since she was 19.
Right.
That's just that because she's so spoiled. Oh my God.
Oh,
Everyone
is.
in this was so infuriating. This entire scene, literally everybody just infuriated me. her when she asked for the money. And then when she got it, did a little shit-eating grin.
Yeah.
Like, I knew you'd give it to me. Like, God. And then the dad and the mom being like, oh, we're going to put down our foot. Oh, Emily isn't good with finances. She doesn't know how to pay bills. Whose fault is that? Who was supposed to teach her that shit? It was you.
Yeah.
Like, the reason she's like that is because you keep giving her money. Like, I kept imagining, like, if I was freeloading off of my dad and went to him and asked him for money for a wedding, he would laugh in my face. It wouldn't be like a discussion. It would just be like, the fuck are you thinking? Like,
well, I also doubt you have the relationship where you're freeloading off your dad in the first place.
That's also true. I definitely, I told the story. I think like my dad, even when he was a kid, but we're the kind of family where it would have been like, yeah, you get like 3 months and then somebody shows up with a phone number on a card and is like, yeah, that's your boss. You're starting on Monday. Why doesn't Emily have a job? I didn't understand why this whole conversation was at Kobe. What's your plan? What's Emily's plan? Why can't she work? What's going on?
Yeah. She would probably claim like, oh, well, I have to mother Coben.
Oh, yeah, because he won't leave the boob. She can work and she needs to work. They both need to work, especially when they have free daycare sitting there in the form of Lisa. Like, it's crazy. And like, even Kobe, like, first of all, yeah, I felt kind of bad for him because he really thought he was doing something with that $4,000. He was really proud of himself for that. And like, we're all like, yeah, that's like 3 months rent. Like, that's not going very far. And you feel bad for him for not knowing that. But again, whose job was it to know that? They have Google in Cameroon. Like, he could have found out how much rent was, right? And then the fact that he didn't even just say he wanted to work for her dad. He said he wanted to, maybe I'll start and then I'll take over your business.
Yeah, I was like, And I thought it was really funny. David's like, so do you have like a certificate or like a degree or any kind of education or training? And he's like, no. It's like, okay, you can't just be an architect.
Or a civil engineer. That's what he said he was going to be. I did civil engineering back in Cameroon. It's like, oh my God. It's like, you should know these things. You should know better to put off than that. But I mean, this is the conspiracy theory I had. I mean, not really conspiracy. Do you really think it was Kobe's idea to ask, like, maybe I can work for your company? Was that his idea or was that Emily's idea?
Oh, I don't know. I think maybe it's just, maybe it's more of a cultural thing. I think, especially in societies where there isn't like people don't just normally go to like a university or something, right?
Sure.
It's pretty common to apprentice with a close family member, right? And kind of stay in the family business. So I could see Kobe kind of assuming a similar thing. Like, oh, Emily's family is pretty well off. I'll just get into the family business.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, you can say it's a cultural thing, but we have, Libby and Andre and Chuck here bringing all his kids into the family business. So, I mean, that kind of nepotism definitely exists in the States too.
Sure. Sure.
But I just think, I just feel like it was like, what job can I have? And I think I could see Emily being like, well, what you need to do is you need to ask my dad if you can work for his business. Because that's the way that you can get a job. Because when she needs anything, the only way she knows how to get it is to ask her dad, apparently.
I know, which is just so ridiculous to me.
I mean, I will say I rewound it and watched it like 3 times when she said the way she did it, because she was doing that annoying asking thing where she wasn't going to ask it first.
Yeah.
Like, things are kind of hard. And, it's really about the money. And as soon as she said the word money, like both of the parents' heads snapped up and looked at her and like, I already know where this train is going.
Yeah, I thought she was definitely being around the bush like, oh, I wish we weren't so worried about money. It's like, oh my gosh, you're so transparent. Do kids know that they're that transparent when they're asking for something?
They have no idea. They think they're being slick. And every time they're like, can we just get to the part where you're asking for money? Because I already know that's where this is going. And let's move on. Yeah. But it's just like, and this is just one of those situations where I just felt like everybody was wrong. Everybody is wrong. You were wrong. Emily is wrong. The parents are wrong for continuing to enable it. Kobe's wrong for like making these weird assumptions and not doing any research. Like, everybody is wrong.
Right. I don't think you're wrong in this. I do think everyone's wrong.
All right. Well, we actually, a lot of places in the show, I felt like everyone was wrong. So let's go to another one where, yeah, pretty much everybody's still wrong. And that's Jibri and Miona. All right, so David and Jibri are still fighting from the time before. They're like rolling on the ground and doing stuff. And eventually, Space Cash has to put his guitar up to try to actually earnestly break up this fight. So then Jibri runs into the bathroom and Brandy tries to comfort her, but he slams the door in her face. And so they all go back to David, he's ranting about Miona doesn't let Jibri be him or whatever. And as we're going through this, I just want to remind you, this fight is because Jibri wanted to text Miona, hey, I'm turning my phone off for a while. Like, he wanted to text her that before turning off her phone instead of just turning off his phone. That's the entire crux of this fight. All right. So anyway, but Jibri ends up coming back and he just kind of wants to ignore everything and just get to work and put his mind on something else. And they don't really let him do that right away, which seems silly to me. That sounds like an excellent plan to me. But eventually they're all like, yo, this producer in the studio is costing us by the hour, so we should stop fucking around and get to work. So anyway, so they do get to work and the energy gets a lot better because they actually do seem to enjoy working together and they like the music that we're making. So they make it and then they listen to it with the producer and everybody's really grooving and dancing and that seems to go really well. So Jibri takes the time at the end to apologize for losing his cool, an apology that, notably to me at least, David does not return. But Jibri also didn't seem like he felt he was owed an apology because he kind of then just goes off and says basically what they're all afraid of. Like, I kind of did give up the band for Miona. So then we flip to Miona and my favorite thing, of course, and we haven't seen it in a long time, wedding dress shopping. It makes a lot of sense, even though they haven't really done any kind of wedding planning at all besides her calling a bunch of places that are booked because she is in Chicago and you're definitely going to be able to find a better wedding dress in Chicago than Rapid City. So yeah. She doesn't have many people around, so it's just Brandy going with her. They became pretty close while she was kind of touring around with Jibri on tour. So, of course, the budget is a big concern, and we don't actually see any price tag, but she does that like, it'll cost what it costs, whatever my dreams, blah, blah, blah. So she's trying on the first dress, and she fills Brandy in on the details about how things are going in Rapid City. Her concern is that Jibri is always trying to play the middle ground of everybody and isn't taking her side enough. So she asks how things went in the studio, where Brandy was like, he got in a fight for you? So, but still is mostly just trying to keep the peace. So then we go to David and Jibri, and now they go out to this Serbian restaurant and drink some rakia and try to hash things out. So Jibri says he's the most mad. The reason he's the most mad is because maybe David is right and this relationship is a terrible idea. So David says that, he does that stupid, annoying person thing where it's like, nobody should be mad at me. I'm just spitting the truth. I'm just telling everybody the truth. It's all good. But he does want them to succeed. David wants to know that, if he wants to know, is she supporting you? Is she giving you what you need? And Jibri kind of goes off on a tangent that I hope Miona never sees, but we know she will because this is on TV. Because he's pretty much goes on this whole long talking point about how he needs to be creative and she just always wants to chill. And she's kind of keeping him from where he needs to be in terms of his creativity. And what does David think you should do? And I thought he would just be like, we should break up with her, dude. But he actually surprises me a little bit by saying just take some extra time. But now, Jibri is totally, totally full of doubt. Is this just Jibri kind of going with the breezes of whoever's standing in front of him right now? Or do you think he actually has deep-seated doubts that are going to kind of stay when Miona's the person that's sitting in front of him?
Yeah, I think that he really does have these doubts. But I think he also maybe comes to the understanding or the acceptance that just they're going to be together, just she might not always be happy with what he chooses or his actions.
I suppose, but I don't know. She seems to, and that's what I guess is a little bit different, is we don't quite know how really demanding she is because she's pretty demanding right now, but right now he's literally all she has. Right? So what else would the only way to be is demanding?
Honestly, I know she's asked for something big, and maybe it's because it seems so unrealistic to me, but, you know, it doesn't seem like she's all that demanding. Like, she's just like, oh, I want to move far away from your parents, and I want to live by the beach. And so to me, it's not that I'm laughing at her, but it's just like, that's not really realistic. She's going to figure it out pretty soon that that's not going to happen. So if that's her only demand, I don't think she's all that demanding.
No, and the other part is like, oh, yes, the demanding is the beach wedding and moving to whatever idyllic Southern California beach she wants to move to, right? That's the demand she's making. But I also think she puts off this other total vibe that he's feeding off of being like resentful of any time he's not spending with her, especially time that he's spending with David and David's other people in the band. Maybe not Brandy so much, but specifically David, which I can't say I actually blame her for, because he's kind of a shithead.
Yeah, where's his twin sister? Like, I feel that she just needs a support system that is not part of Jibri, right? And I think if she meets other possibly Serbian people that she can communicate with, and like have as like a girlfriend there, like maybe she wouldn't like have her whole life revolve around Jibri. And, you know, and I think this is a lot of a problem of the foreign partners that come over here. It's not always or necessarily the cultural clash, or it's just the fact that they simply miss home. They miss their friends and family. They don't have anyone here. So it's kind of natural for their life to revolve around their partner. And I think that manifests in a way that's not always that healthy, you know, with them also trying to isolate their partner, even though, you know, they're surrounded by friends and family. So I think if she has like someone, and I think, you know, if David's sister's around, I mean, she's Serbian, you know, she's a girl, that would be a good start. It
definitely does not help that the one Serbian connection that is obviously there is someone who's actively trying to break them up.
Yeah.
Like, right. And then so I get her being like, I don't want you hanging around that guy. And we see a lot of, I don't want you hanging around those people in this episode. This one seems the most reasonable to me, because he's like, he actively is trying to break you up from me.
Right.
It's not like he's crazy, but like, I also don't get, and this is another thing that comes up repeatedly, is in this one, why do people think so little of the people they care about? Like, David is like, I don't know, man. She gave you brain worms, and now you're not you, and she turned you into something else. Like, do you really think that's all on her, and none of the responsibility for that falls on Jibri?
Yeah.
Like, I can just blame this other person for you being so soft-minded that you turned into a completely different person because boobs, I guess? I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's just, I think they're both not wrong about assessing the situation. I do think there is a level of David's root issue is that she's taking him away from them. I don't know if you would get as much protest if Jibri was dating someone who was very, very wrong for him, but at the same time, very permissive in terms of how he spends his time.
Yes. If he was dating somebody that was absolutely horrible for him and taking all of his money and abusing, but she let him hang out with the band all the time, they'd be cool with it. They'd be totally fine with it. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's move on to another couple whose friends are maybe getting in the way a little bit, and that's Eve and Mohamed. So Mohamed is annoyed because Eve got home later than she said she would after a night out with her friend. Eve is feeling stressed because she feels like she has to live by all these rules all of a sudden. Eve tries to explain to Mohamed that she needs some friend time. Mohamed doesn't know why her friends are worried about her. He feels like her friends are poisoning her mind. She reiterates that she will not be converting to Muslim. They start talking over each other in some very hard to follow, arguments about, you said you would do this. You said you would do this. Why don't you accept me? And Mohamed asks if she feels like she's going to lose who she is with him. Eve thinks his religion is too confining for her. Mohamed wants her to at least respect his culture. Mohamed thinks he has always been clear about who he is, and Eve also wants to be clear that he's not in a Muslim country and she's not Muslim. Mohamed thinks that she came to visit him 4 times, and who he was then was exactly who he is, so she really shouldn't be surprised. And she objects, saying that that wasn't really real. That was vacation, and she didn't get to see him in normal day-to-day stuff. Mohamed thought that she was ready to start a new life with him, meaning that she was willing to change. Mohamed isn't going to change who he is, and he's concerned about who Eve will listen to him, to him or his friends. All right, so what do you think Eve's going to do? Do you think she's going to listen to him or her friends? And also, I'm still confused why both of them thought the other was going to change when they've made it pretty clear that that's not the case.
Yeah, I guess it also depends on what the definition of change is, because
sure.
I thought that Mohamed here came off as a total psychopath.
Sure.
And he does. It's partially because he has that emotional level. I am just saying that I am not going to change, and I don't want you to know how I change. That monotone voice he has, that monotone, kind of high pitched voice, just definitely sounds like a Bond villain voice already. And when you back that up with he's asking her to change who she is, right? You can't wear this. You can't go out with your friends. You can't drink. You can't blah, 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 blah. You should convert to Islam, right? Those are things that are actual changes to her.
Yeah.
She's asking him to change only in that he not demand someone else to do something. Mm-hmm. That's not change. She's not actually asking him to change anything about himself, except for he defines himself by what he allows his partner to do. It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
And that he just thinks that's a defining part of himself is what Eve wears to the beach. And so who's asking who to change?
I think it's just who he's associated with, right? He doesn't think of himself as being partnered or associated with such a liberal person. Yeah,
well, then both of them are so crazily mistaken about what the situation is that obviously the best thing to happen is he's like, I'll just go back to Egypt. And it's like, yeah, that's what should happen. That is exactly what should happen.
Because I definitely don't get the impression that he wants to be here that badly.
No, I don't think he cares about America at all.
No, I don't think so either. I think especially after being here, he didn't realize it was this different from his country and this liberal.
For real.
And I think that really, I don't know, speaks to him in a very negative way.
Yeah, I think that, again, this is someone who didn't prepare, right? What did you think it was going to be like? Because I feel like you can consume American media. You should have some sort of idea what people are like in America. But I also feel like there's the same thing that happened with last week, the guys in the mosque, when they were asked about him, were like, yeah, he's really going to have to adjust his expectations dramatically if he's going to be able to stay here.
Yeah, but I think just in their relationship, I just can't believe that to me, it just seems a little unfair that Eve just expected I'll remove him from his culture and then he'll just adapt, right? Which means not asking him or not asking her to do anything and to kind of, have a say in their relationship.
Well, I mean, it's obviously a communication thing because at some point they will be talking about a specific thing and they will say different things about that thing, right? You promised me you'd never wear a bikini again. I never said that. One of the two of them is wrong.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know which one.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I think she's going to end up listening to her friends because I think it's like minds stick together, right?
Sure.
Her friends are what she's really thinking about the situation.
Totally. And I also just think that it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
Because and I think you're right. She seeks out her friends and she's friends with her friends because they already are kind of on the same wavelength for things like this. For all kinds of things, but including things like this, right? And it's not like what he thinks where you're going to talk to these friends and again, you're weak-minded and they're poisoning your mind against me. Right. And so, his option is not going to be like, wow, this person is a different person than I thought they were. They're much more liberal than I thought they were. It's going to be, I got to keep her away from these mind poisoning harpies that are destroying my relationship and poisoning my honey.
Yeah. I think kind of the X factor here that we haven't seen too much is how Mohamed really feels about being a stepdad to Theron. If he really loves it and Theron really loves him and they have a really great relationship, I can 100% Eve not being able to walk away from this relationship because, how has dating been, with her son that she has to take care of.
Yeah.
And has, more needs than your average child. And so I think finding a partner that is going to accept that and take on that responsibility, I think I can only imagine is a challenge to find. And I could see her really valuing that over these other things that, she could probably see herself working through.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think it's tricky because I'm kind of associating it's a different factor because of Theron's special needs. That you're not going to be quite as worried about some of the cultural things. Like, I couldn't have somebody as a stepmother to my daughters that wanted to teach them or thought that the right role of women is to get into a relationship and be like another mother. Like, I would be like, no, I don't want you teaching that to my daughters at all. And I don't want that around. But those kind of moral lessons, that cultural thing is not quite going to have the same impact for Theron because of the special needs. And so it's not as much of a concern in that aspect of the relationship. But yeah, I mean, I guess it is worrisome. Is she in the sad place of this is the best I can do? Right. And then nothing else, is this my last chance at love?
Oh, gosh.
And then she'll settle for things she shouldn't settle for.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I would like to see more of their relationship on the show.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think it's just so funny that we've barely seen them, like Theron on the show and like how he feels about Mohamed or how Mohamed feels about him. And to me, that's much bigger deal than, what the friends think.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yes, how their relationship goes is as important, but I don't know that you're going to get the other thing too is, I mean, it's a TV show and they don't want to bring in, you don't want to have drama involved with this,
Right. I get that they're trying to avoid exploiting him.
Yes. Yeah. Totally. All right. So let's move on to the other relationship with kids, and that's Bilal and Shaeeda. So Bilal is off with his son to play some ball, so that leaves his daughter Zaina to stay with Shaeeda and maybe learn some traditional Trinidadian dishes since it's his weekend with the kids, and this is like her first time to show off to try out for motherhood. So they start with the cooking, and they talk about how they do things in Trinidad and the cooking. And it gets very weird very quickly because Jeannie says, you need to wash the chicken like you wash your lady parts.
That was so concerning. I was like, what?
And then when you watched how she washed the chicken,
yes,
I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
Very
aggressively washing that chicken, like to the point where it fell into pieces and everything. It's like, oh, wow. They do things very different in Trinidad, I guess. But anyway, it's just awkward for everyone. But things get better when they, mutually can complain about how particular Bilal is about cleanliness, which Zaina also is bothered by because she's like, I'm messy too. So then they kind of start talking about the thing that's been bothering Shaeeda, how they keep referring to her by her first name instead of what she want to be called, which is Umi. So she tried to explain to Zaina that yes, the word kind of means mom, but it doesn't mean mom in the way you think of mom. It's just kind of what you call every adult woman. Like every adult woman is Umi, like that you have any kind of relationship with. And Zaina's like, I get it. Still feels weird, and I'm going to call you Shaeeda. So she's disappointed, but is hoping she can baby step her way into that role. So later on, after some prayer time, it's time for family day and having some fun outside. So Shaeeda thinks that, maybe wedding shopping would be fun, but Bilal doesn't actually want to do all that much wedding planning. And he tells us in an interview it's because he wants to talk about the prenup first. But he's not going to bring that up today because today is Family Fun Day. So he doesn't want to stress. And the activity that he's chosen is scooters on the Riverwalk. So he gets rents a bird scooter for everybody because, as we can attest, they are everywhere in Kansas City.
Oh my gosh, they were everywhere.
I feel like they're everywhere in a lot of cities, but they were very everywhere. And they do it and they get on the little path by the river and they go up and down. I thought they would actually go down the path because I know the path that they're on. It goes the whole length of the river and they just kept going past this same 100 yards. I was very confused. But I guess it makes a little bit more sense when you realize that Shaeeda cannot ride this scooter at all.
Yeah.
She crashes. She won't go fast enough. And she didn't like the idea at all, but she didn't want to kill the vibe. So at some point she takes a break to sit down on a rock and she talks to Bilal. So he wants to check in with oh, how are you doing with, blending into America and adjusting. And she was like, yeah, America's fine. But, it's kind of hard to get getting along with you because you're particular and fussy, which he gets defensive about. And then
surprise.
Yeah, eventually he says it every time. She tells him when they start talking about, I'm not fussy, the dishes just need to go in the right place. So she feels like that every time they have a conversation, it feels to her like he's trying to win the conversation. Then they go to an interview and he told us, which I found hard to believe, that he's never had so many arguments with any person ever.
I also found that hard to believe. I was like, liar.
Yeah, he's a very argumentative person.
Yes.
I'd be shocked if he doesn't have arguments with people all the time. And he doesn't get why every conversation, actually, I take that back. We'll get to it later. He doesn't understand why every conversation turns into an argument. He's nagging or particular, whatever. It doesn't end well because now she's all up in her feelings and he's like, do you want me to leave? And says yes and gets up to give her space. All right. So let's start with that. I mean, what do you think the reason is? Because I have my reasoning why he thinks that no one ever disagrees with him.
Well, I think that he's either had two kinds of people in his life. He's had ones that just, give in to everything that he's ever said. Or he has had people who just get over things rather quickly, And so he, in his mind, I don't know. I think he's delusional in the first place because let's be real here. He thinks all these things are jokes. It's no, dude, that's not a joke. I don't know what is going on your mind where you don't see reality for what it is.
Yeah, it's it's not a joke if what you're saying is something you want to happen.
Yeah.
You can say it in a jokey way, but he's like, oh, you're really bad at putting the dishes away. He's saying, you're really bad at putting the dishes away, and I wish you would do it differently.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, I was just joking around. It's I don't know. I think that's often people's catch-all for, if they feel like they've offended someone. Just kidding.
It was a joke. Well, and people kind of preempt that. If they're going to say something that might offend them, they phrase it kind of in the form of a joke or with the intonation of a joke so that they can play it off later, right?
Yeah.
It's a similar thing to the the guys who are way too aggressive and it's like, oh, we're going to have sex later, right? Haha. As a joke and be like, unless
you're into it.
Unless you're into it.
Yeah.
And then then we'll do it. But yeah, it's everything he says as a joke is something that he wants. Mm-hmm. And I mean, my theory is that everybody kind of knows. And I think she knows. You're okay, I can get into an argument with you. I'm not going to win. You're going to just do whatever. So why would I waste my energy on the argument? Just, okay, yes, Bilal, sure. Fantastic. Great. Move on. And you're see, we didn't have an argument. That went swimmingly. It's people just condescendingly, not condescendingly, but just end the conversation because they're there's no point in having it.
Right. Yeah. And I definitely think he maybe misinterprets people's exhaustion.
Yes. Sure.
Or that wasn't an argument because I got my way.
Yes. I got my way without any struggle. Not an argument. Right.
Yeah. So, I don't know. What is it with them, Bilal and Shaeeda, having the worst t-shirts ever? Did you see her Trinidad girl shirt?
Did it just say Trinidad girl?
No, and it had it was a dictionary. I couldn't read what it was, but it was a very involved
definition
shirt.
Of it. Yeah. I don't know. One time when I was in college, I got a t-shirt that had like a funny saying on it or something. And I wore it like twice and was like, this is awful. I'm never wearing this shirt again. And then got over that real quick because people like stop and read your shirt. And it's like weird to have, and okay, maybe it's not weird for half of y'all, but for guys, it's weird to have people just stop and stare at your chest.
Well, what was his like trolling shirt, like blessed or whatever the heck?
I don't know. He always has blessed or
be
happy,
grateful.
Be grateful. Yeah. Oh, just
gosh.
Just
yeah. Okay. Also, I think that Shaeeda just needs to get over this whole like naming thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like there should be some sort of middle ground because I get that she just is like, it feels really disrespectful that you're calling me by my first name.
Yeah.
Right.
Make up your own name then.
Yeah. Yeah. You could be, I don't know. But the Umi thing, because they ruined it because she missed her opportunity. Because it should have been like when she was like, I think you should call me Umi. And Bilal was like, that means mom, right? She should have been like, not really. No, that's not what it means.
Right.
It's like, I mean, it seems more to me like it's more like auntie or something like that. Like,
yeah. Well, what's auntie in her language? I'm not even knowing what her language is.
Don't they speak English in Trinidad?
Yeah, but she has another language, right?
Some sort of, I don't know if she speaks Arabic or there's a Creole or something she speaks.
Like, what is that?
Oh, I don't know. There's probably some Creole. I don't want to speak too much on it, but like, you know, kind of one of those. I'm sure there is another language that is kind of bleeding it.
Have them call her auntie in the same language Umi's in. There you go. There's your middle ground.
Right. It just, But I think that Zaina wasn't as necessarily stuck on the mom thing as much as she was stuck on calling her any pet name. Like, I do not know you enough to call you a pet name.
Sure.
Like, that's not a thing. And it'd be different if they were younger, but she's like kind of old. And she's like, I mean, I do get that because she's a teenager. Could you imagine if you're an adult and somebody came in and was like, I think you should call me. And you're like, nope. If my parents got remarried to somebody, like, nope, not going to call you that. You're going to be your first name. Like, that's going to happen.
Okay, so there seemed to be a lot of wedding planning on this episode, so let's check in with Kara and Guillermo, where they're talking about wedding plans. Kara wants to have a courthouse wedding because it's $50, and they don't have any money. Kara wants to get married in another year when they could save money and have Guillermo's family attend. Kara wants to have a dream wedding, and she just knows that there's going to require time and planning for that, and 90 days just isn't enough time.
Well done.
So Guillermo points out that in a year, they're going to be saving for other things like a baby, and there's just always going to be something. Kara asks how much he would want to spend, and he says $2,000. Kara says that's not going to happen here if he wants to have a big wedding. And if he wants to have a big wedding, you're looking at closer to $10,000. Guillermo's confused what happened to the permissive Kara in the DR who said yes to everything. And as soon as they got to America, she has always said no. Where's the Kara he fell in love with? Kara doesn't think it's a good idea to fall in love with a venue just for them to not be able to afford it. But if it gets Guillermo to realize how expensive this whole thing is going to be, she's willing to check out some places and make him happy. So Kara takes Guillermo to a vineyard to tour. Guillermo is feeling very controlled right now, he tells us in an interview, so he's happy that Kara's at least listened to him and they're actually looking at a place. Kara and Guillermo think the venue is gorgeous, and Guillermo is feeling emotional over how beautiful it is. He even mentioned that he would just cry through the whole wedding. After hearing the venue costs about $7,500 for their cheapest day, Guillermo realizes Kara may be right. Guillermo appreciates that Kara heard him and took him to tour the venue, but he still feels like Kara is controlling. He feels like she has the final word about everything without really consulting him. So then Kara and him do a sit down, and he then brings up how Kara just makes plans with friends and doesn't run it by him. And he feels like the ass, like canceling or, not going with her. Kara encourages him to voice his opinion, but she's confused. She doesn't feel like this is the right time or place to be having this conversation about control when, she just thinks that he's upset over the fact that, having a big wedding isn't within their reach. Okay, so what do you think Guillermo's really mad about here? Do you think he's mad about like not being able to afford this wedding and being wrong? Or is he really mad about this whole thing that he just brought up last minute about, Kara making all the decisions for them?
No, I think that it's connected. I think that is exactly, I think they're not different, actually. That Kara making the decisions is why they had to tour the wedding venue, right? Because she already made that decision that we can't afford this. And he's like, well, did you tell me that? Did you run it by me? Did we decide that? Or did you decide that? And then you told me. And like, I think that's pretty much everything. He's like, since we got to America, everything has been like, I decided this and then I told you. And he's like, what? And part of it and most of it is stuff that she's not wrong about. Like she clearly wasn't wrong about that. We all knew when he said $2,000, we were all like, like that's not happening. Right? Everybody in America watching the show was like, oh geez, I see where you're at, guy.
Yeah.
But
if you added a community like a church or something or a community center, maybe he could do it for $2,000.
Yes. But that's not what he was looking for. He was looking for some sort of dream thing. But like, I just don't understand why Kara can't let somebody else be the bad guy. Why can't she go, oh, okay, that's your budget? I'll tell you what, why don't you next week call some places, see if you can find anything that works, within the 90 days, and we'll look at the options. And let them tell him that he's having a pipe dream that's not going to come true. Right? Why do you have to be the one that goes, no, that's not going to work? No. Like, and I feel like we've talked about this enough. I feel like sometimes you do that too, where you're like, not this, in the terms of you go, I think that idea is dumb, but I'm going to let you find that out on your own. We're going to go along with it.
Yeah.
Right? Just let the other, I don't understand her insistence that she has to be the one that does it. Like that was a perfect opportunity. And I, as a parent, always look for opportunities where somebody else gets to be the bad guy. And I don't have to be the bad guy. Let the wedding venue people be the bad guy.
Yeah, I think for this particular situation, that would have been the best. But the thing that I think she might fear is like, oh, he's going to start dumping money into this thing and there's like kind of no turning back.
Yeah, and I don't think he was wrong about his assessment either. Like if we put it off for next year, then next year it's going to be like, oh, but we have to get a house and we're already married. And like, and it's never, I agree that it's probably never going to happen if they put it off for a year. Yeah.
Right.
But I just think he wants her. I just think what happens to him all the time is she's like, here's the final decision. And even it goes into little things like when it goes out for friends. It's not like, hey, we got invited to go out on Friday night with so-and-so and so-and-so. Is that something you want to do? Do you want to do something else? Instead, it's like, we're going out on Friday night with so-and-so and so-and-so. I already told him yes. Like, and he's like, what the fuck? Right?
Yeah.
Like that's especially when you don't really have control over much because you are new and you are adjusting to the country. Like at least pretend to ask me before you say yes to everything is not too much to ask, because it does feel like I'm just being jerked around everywhere. I'm like your puppy, right? That you're just coming around showing off to everybody.
Yeah. Well, this is another situation where it's very difficult when your whole world is your partner because you don't have friends and family established in this country. And so, it's just assumed that they're always going to be together because what else does he have to do? And so even, when they were talking about his excuses for not wanting to go out, it was always like, oh, I'm too tired. Because really, what else do you have? It's not like you have work.
Right. I mean, the other ones that go, I don't like those people is another one that comes up that I'm sure that he didn't say on camera. But it's like, but I could even see on the interview, she is extremely condescending to him.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like she picked somebody super young because she felt like, well, I'm the older, wiser one, and they're going to have to listen to me. Right?
Yeah.
Because, like the point where he says something, she's like, okay, yeah. Like after he says this whole thing about how he's feeling, she's just like, okay, are you done? Like, and you can just tell she thinks it's so dumb and it's so condescending to him. It actually drives me kind of nuts.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, from her perspective, like, why is she that into him? Because, you know, like, I was dating a guy that kind of annoyed me that way because I kind of, like, internally felt that, like, oh my gosh, why are you so dumb? You know, like, that's such a dumb idea, right? And it became very unattractive after a while. Like, why can't you just be smarter?
Why can't you come up with one smart suggestion just one time?
Right? So it's just like, I don't understand like how she's so into him then, because that's gotta be unattractive to feel like you're mothering someone. Like, and that person isn't your equal.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Based on the other guy we saw her date, I think she really wants to be the smart one in the relationship. But she's not that smart, so it's a pretty low bar for where she's got to get down to before she's the smart one in the relationship. Like, oh, can we also talk, when we talk about clothes, can we talk about what were these Little House on the Prairie tent dresses she was wearing this whole time?
That's kind of like trendy.
Oh my God. It was like, she was like in a muumuu. She's a skinny girl wearing this huge, poofy, long, flowy thing. I was very confused.
I actually didn't hate it. I thought it was pretty fashionable.
The skin-colored one?
Yeah. I know which one you're talking about. The one with the puffy sleeves.
No. It looked like she was wearing a balloon.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think we probably just have different... I mean, she's closer to you than she is to me in terms of like location, but, you know, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about East Coast fashion. The fact that Crocs are really in right now, that still blows my mind.
Yeah. I feel like it's mostly Crocs and ripped jeans right now. But then again, that's mostly teenagers.
90s is back in, but I wouldn't lump in Crocs with the 90s.
No, Crocs were a 2000s thing. It's just comfortable. Like, I feel like that's still the pandemic fashion holding over of people like, I don't care, it's comfortable. Shut up.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, so clearly you all value function over fashion.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. She's just trying to be a little fashionable. I don't hate that.
I didn't like it. All right. So last couple, Patrick and Thais. So things are rough in Dallas since it's the first night, and they didn't have a working water heater. So, but Patrick and John, start talking about Thais's response to the house, specifically how they both think she's being pretty ungrateful about this gorgeous house they live in. John then kind of abruptly switches over to, hey, does she still have tracking on your phone? Because that was supposed to turn off when you got to US, right? I don't think it has yet. And it hasn't. The tracking's still on her phone. So Patrick kind of agrees and wants to deal with the issue sooner rather than later, but he also wants to make it go as smooth as possible. So he has a plan. They go out to the dinner where he gives her a present. The present is like lingerie with like fur that she thought was a cat.
Oh, God.
It's also weird that she was taking out the lingerie like in the middle of this restaurant, just like, oh, look at this one. And look at this one. But after she uncovers the lingerie, there's an iPhone under there. So she's really excited about the iPhone, but it comes with a condition. New phone means no phone tracking. So she thinks two things. First, this is a little too clever of him. And two, I want you to keep your location on. She doesn't feel good that it doesn't feel good that she doesn't trust him, but then she mentions there's some reasons that she doesn't trust him. And then we get a little story. So it turns out when they first started being together, Patrick made out with another girl a little bit. Well, that's what they say in the restaurant, but then he says it in an interview about what happens, and it sounds way worse because it sounds like they would have had sex if he didn't have whiskey dick and couldn't do it.
Right.
So maybe a little bit more than just making out. So Thais brings up how, I guess it was like 6 months after this or 6 months after they drew together, he was looking at this ugly bitch's Instagram and also messaging her. Like, yeah, it was Thais that said, and I don't get it. She was ugly. She was just so ugly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll talk about that.
It was more. So it was a while ago, but she's still clearly not over it. So he proposes a compromise that if he messes up again, he'll turn the location back on. But she's like, no, if you mess up again, I'm moving back to Brazil. So anyway, back at the house, Thais and Patrick are still unpacking when John announces that, oh yeah, we're throwing a party, having a housewarming party, like now in the house, with he says a couple of coworkers. It's a chance to get to know everybody. So Thais is not pleased since John and parties are like one of the things she didn't want happening at her house. So John says he was stuck, though. He couldn't like ask him beforehand because they would have said no. So what else was he supposed to do?
Surprise.
Surprise party. All right. So then they have a coworker, Wagner, who comes and, Patrick says he's one of his best friends and he's trying out this translation app and also calls a bunch of random women to the house, which is bad news for Patrick since it sounds like the party that he kind of hooked up with this girl at before. Yeah. So, and he knows how jealous Thais is. So he's like trying to like find a place to look that there's no woman at. He's like, and he's very, very stressed out. So anyway, it does turn into as much of a rager as we ever see on 90 Day Fiance, being that there were shots involved. Yeah. So, even though the entire party was held in the kitchen, like nobody left the kitchen, eventually Thais drags him out of the kitchen and makes sure he knows that she's got his eyes on him. Even if I'm talking to somebody else, I'm watching you. Before they come back to the kitchen and lick each other's tongues like a couple of weirdos. So gross. I've done things, but not that. That's so gross. In front of other people, too. Ugh.
Yeah.
All right.
She's really trying to stake her claim there.
That's 100%. I mean, is there any solution to this jealousy problem? Keeping the location on is not a solution to her jealousy.
No, it really isn't. People have ways around stuff like that. I know of someone who has his location on and he just bikes to that person's house that he hooks up with. And so
he leaves the phone in his place and then bikes somewhere else.
Yeah, or something. I don't know. But it's just like people can get around that fairly easily. I think this is one of those things where it's just going to take time. I don't know if time while tracking him is really going to solve their problem. And this is just something that, we've talked about this before. How can you prove that you have changed? You can only prove that you've not changed. Right.
And to me, it's just like, I was just imagining if I had location on or if I had somebody else's location on, right?
Yeah.
It would totally make me more paranoid and more jealous. Like, because now it's something I can look at. It's something I can check at all times. Where are they now? Why are they taking so long there? How long are they going to be at the grocery store? Right.
Yeah.
And right now, I don't give a shit. I wouldn't know. Right. Whatever.
Yeah.
And so you think of how. And I don't get paranoid. But, if you think you were paranoid over it's taking a long time to text back, then it's going to be more stressful and worse if you are wondering literally about all of their movements all day long.
Well, I don't know. I think it's that anxiousness, though, right? So it's very easy to kind of ramp yourself up and worry. And then knowing exactly where they are almost calms that down. Right. And so then you're calmed down until your brain kicks in. You start having those anxious thoughts again and you're ramped back up. So I do think that it perpetuates this cycle of keeping you anxious because, it's like you're really just learning to cope with it by having more information. And if something doesn't, if they're not just sitting at home or doing something, at work, then that's going to make it even worse. But I think the ultimate goal in this anxious situation would be to come up with other ways for self-soothing, not to find information out and then that somehow dictates how you're going to feel or do next.
Right. Well, I guess to me that's the issue is if you need information for your soothing, you're never going to have enough of it.
Right.
It's never going to be enough information.
Yeah.
To fully think. Because you're going to be like, oh yeah, his phone's been at home, but it's been there home for an hour. It's been home for too long. Maybe he left it somewhere and went somewhere else. Right. As we discussed. And so it just seems like a poor way to go about it. And it doesn't, you either have to at this point, because you're engaged and you move to America for him, you either have to trust him or you have to break up. You can't be in the middle like this. It's not going to work.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I think those are the only options. I don't know if she sees them as the only options.
Right.
It's interesting. I feel bad for her that, she has a very close relationship with her dad. And she said that part of the reason why she feels this way is because she knows her dad cheated on her mom. And the way she sees it is her dad is a really good man that she loves and she's close to, and he's still capable of doing these things.
Right.
So I get that some of this stuff is outside of Patrick, but that Patrick didn't help the situation by making out with some girl.
Right. I don't know. It all seems very, very interesting. And then, of course, John is he is a shit stirrer. That's all he ever does is stir shit.
I think that he's like, well, let me see if I can do just enough to make her like want to leave.
Yeah.
But without it being obvious that I'm trying to make it so she wants to leave.
He just always likes to be like, he just likes to make people uncomfortable. Like, even her, whatever, get her to let him leave. John's like, he's like, immediately when he's like, we're talk. What about the location? Is that still on? Still got the location on? Here's a sore spot. I'm going to poke it. Poke.
I think it would be different if he actually liked her, but he doesn't like her. I think even as a person, I think he respects the fact that they're in a relationship and she makes him Patrick happy. But quite honestly, I don't really even like her as a person either. Like the fact that she immediately goes straight to, oh, these women are uglier than me. How could Patrick ever, it has this air of like she thinks she's better than everyone else. And I think she definitely comes off that way.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that we haven't seen enough of her, I guess.
I've seen enough of her beer tasting face. That was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen.
Yeah,
she was like fluttering her eye, making this like weird sour face, but not really. I was like, what look is this?
No, but so far I'm like, so what are the positive attributes of her personality? Because we've seen her be standoffish. We've seen her be like rude. We've seen her, I haven't seen her laugh. I haven't seen her laugh or smile very much. No, I think we did. We saw her smile, I feel like, when she got the iPhone.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen her crack a joke.
No.
So
and I don't find her particularly attractive, at least consistently. Like, I think she looks different. Like, in the interviews, in like, old pictures, in, just recent, like, present day ongoings. She doesn't look like the same person.
Yeah, I'll give you that. She has a lot of things going on there.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings us to our end and our students of the week. Who was your student of the week?
Oh, this was so difficult. Like when I was actually looking at it, I was like, oh my gosh, everyone was like kind of a little terrible this week.
They certainly were.
The least terrible of everyone I thought was Kobe. He sat through, he was, I don't know. And even then it was like, you were still delusional, but at least you didn't have any issues with your partner.
Yeah, I did have issues with Kobe being delusional. So I moved him down a little bit, especially the part where it's like, you're just talking to this guy and you told him you wanted to take over his business.
I know, right?
I'm going to push you out. And then like, it's like, oh my God. So I went with, again, it was a deep dig because I did look at every one. It was like, nope, they did this terrible. They did this terrible. They did this terrible. They did this terrible. Oh my God. Now they went through the whole list. So I went with Guillermo. I think he's young and doesn't know how to put it yet, but at least he's being open about his wants and needs, like, and not like trying to play little games with stuff.
Sure. So I agree with that. But the reason why I didn't go with Guillermo, because he was definitely second on my list, was just his, like, it almost seemed like he was picking a fight after he didn't get his way at the venue. It's like, why are you bringing this up now? It seems like a weird time.
I guess so. And that was also Kara's assessment too, right?
Yeah. All right. What about your dunce?
Class dunce was difficult for another reason because
I know,
everybody was terrible.
Yeah.
So I actually went with Jibri.
Okay.
Right? And that's because at the end there, when he was talking to David and he was talking to us about like has doubts in the relationship, it actually sounded like he doesn't like Miona at all. And like, I don't understand what you're getting into. If you could talk like that about the person you're ostensibly supposed to marry, like that's not good. You should not be getting married to that person.
Oh my gosh, yeah. All right, so I went with Thais. Like, the jealousy, just her, we're starting to really see her as a person, and I just don't really like her, to be honest.
Yeah, and she licks people's tongues.
Yeah, that was also disgusting. And she makes weird beer face tasting faces. Oh, that was also bizarre. All right, so what about your life lesson?
All right, so I'm definitely on for my life lesson is at Emily's parents.
Oh, like, I feel like mine's going to be the same as yours then.
Listen, if someone has been living with you rent free for their entire adult life, don't pay for their wedding.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, in the same vein,
any more money, just the courthouse is right there. They've already used up their wedding money.
Oh gosh, I know. Well, in the same vein, I was kind of bothered by the fact that they were just complaining the entire time about how Emily doesn't know anything about the real world in terms of finances.
Yeah, that's
you can't complain about that and continue to enable them by saying yes to more money.
Yes, it's definitely was like they kept saying that, and I was like, because of you.
Whose fault is that?
You did that.
Yep.
It's your fault. It's just like it's hearing people complain about things that they did. It's like, I'm so upset that I made a huge amount of money last year. My bank account's empty. That's so sad for me. And I'm like, it's because you spent all your money. Shut up.
Yeah. All right. Well, they got to figure things out. So we are probably, I'm going to guess, like about a third into this season if they're only 30 days.
You'd think so. But I mean, do you think the season's going to be 27 episodes long?
Yeah, good point. Maybe we're about halfway through.
Yeah, I'd say about halfway through.
All right. Well, we will continue covering this group. And did we miss anyone today? No, we saw everyone, right?
No, Ari and Biniam were not in this episode.
Oh, right. So, yep, it sounds like next week that Biniam has his first fight. So,
yeah, that should be entertaining at least.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll see y'all next week then.
All right, see everybody then.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.